Hi all, I'm Trisha Peach, host of the Kidmin.Ninja, and this is part of my series on the people who really influenced me in ministry, who gave me a chance, who inspired me. So I found out there's quite a few people on this list, and I don't want to miss anybody, but I talked about how the very first ones who influenced me were my mom and my dad. Absolutely fantastic. So the second person I want to talk to you about is Jeff Post. So I was 8 years old. I went to Bible camp for the very first time and I loved it. Oh my goodness. I was hooked the very first time I went. I loved Bible camp. We did not have anything like that at my church. I don't even think children's pastors were a thing yet. This would have been 1986. There were children's evangelists, but not really children's pastors yet. So I would go to camp and I just was blown away by the speakers. They would do so many cool things: ventriloquism, puppetry, object lessons. So I thought that was mandatory to be in kids ministry. You had to know all that stuff. And juggling, which I never did learn how to juggle. But that very first summer camp, I was there. I already knew Jesus. I'd grown up in church. I loved Jesus. I already was reading my Bible. But when I was listening to him give an altar call, I came forward for an altar call, not for salvation. But I was praying at that altar, and it's a kind of an odd thing to, I was feeling more the voice of God more than hearing it physically. It was like God pointed at Jeff Post, who was on the stage doing the ministry, and said, that is what you're going to do for me. And I was saying, okay, that sounds great. I don't know how to do any of that, but sure, that's what I'm going to do. And I came home and told my parents, and they were very, very supportive, because they said if it's not God, she'll go back to wanting to be whatever next week, Princess of the Universe. But if it is God, we don't want to get in the way of it. And they were supportive, and it never went away, that burning desire to be in children's ministry. So I went home after meeting Jeff Post, and I was making puppets out of my socks, all that kind of great stuff. And while I was at camp, I remember I had this little book with me that I was writing things down, and I went up and asked if he'd sign my little book, and he signed my little book. And kids pastors, kidmin leaders, you might not think much of that, but to a kid, that is worth more than all the money in the world. I had that little book with my signatures, and I got them later from different children's pastors, and that was so precious to me, so precious. So I got to, I later in life, that was 40 years ago, by the way, that God called me into ministry. Yes, I'm 48. I reached out on Facebook and found Jeff Post and just kind of explained my story. And he responded very graciously. It was really cool. I got to say thank you for being faithful. Thank you for serving the Lord. It inspired me. I've been doing kids ministry now a long time. So I want to put down what he's doing now. This is what he's working on right now, with a lot more to come. So yes, I still keep in touch with Jeff Post now, and I hope this inspires you that whatever you're doing this summer with VBS, with camp, with your own ministry at your church, you may not think it's making a huge difference, but God's doing something behind the scenes that you can't see, and God will bless your faithfulness. You're not called to have the most kids in your ministry. You're called to minister and to be faithful. And God's doing things you can't imagine. So thank you to Jeff Post, and I'll see you next time for the next person on my list that I'm thankful for. Comment down below, who are you thankful for? Who inspired you in ministry? I want to know. Does any of you know Jeff Post? You can put down here. I'm going to tag him on this. I didn't tell him I was doing this. So we love you guys. I'll see you next week on the Kidman.Ninja. Keep being faithful and doing what you're called to do. God bless.